One Child by Barbara Cameron. Chapter 1. Sarah heard the thin, reedy cry of a newborn. "Wake up," she told herself. "Wake up, the baby needs you." But something was holding her down, binding her arms. She fought against it. "I have to get to my baby," she moaned. "Sarah, wake up. It's just a bad dream." Jerking awake, Sarah stared into her husband's face. His eyebrows were drawn together in a frown. "You were dreaming again." She closed her eyes, opened them again, and sighed. No. The bad dream was waking and finding that she didn't have a child. "One child," she thought. "If I had just one child, I could be happy, God. Is one child too much to ask?" Then, just as quickly, she chided herself. It was wrong to talk to God that way. David let go of her arms. "You haven't had one in a long time." He narrowed his eyes. "Have you?" Sarah nearly squirmed under his inquisitive stare. She shook her head. Sitting up, she tried to swing her legs off the bed, but David's large frame blocked her way. "I can't believe I fell asleep. I was going to rest for just a minute after I came home from school." He touched her arm. "You've exhausted yourself with readying up the house and doing so much at school with the Christmas program." "I need to get up." "Sarah." "David, please. People will be coming at 4. I don't want our guests to think anything's wrong." "Even if it is?" His voice was quiet, but the words felt like a slap. David stood and Sarah moved from the bed, avoiding his eyes. She smoothed her dress, grateful that she hadn't wrinkled it lying down. Going to the mirror, she stared at her face, seeing a conflicting message written on its oval shape. There were lavender shadows beneath her gray eyes, evidence she couldn't hide that she wasn't sleeping enough lately. But a sleep crease in her cheek showed she'd just gotten up from bed. She rubbed a finger over the crease and hoped it would be gone before anyone arrived. Putting on the cup she'd laid out earlier over her nut-brown hair, she started to turn. Then she caught a flash of movement in the mirror. David stood behind her, the expression on his handsome face full of regret and dismay. But she wasn't ready to forgive his comment. "You need to get cleaned up." The words came out a little sharper than she'd intended. "Look at me, Sarah," he said softly. She did as he asked. It was a long look up, as David was a foot taller than her 5'2" stature. It was even harder to meet his concerned gaze. "I'm fine, David. Really." "I'm your husband, Sarah," he said. "There's no need to pretend with me." She nodded and sighed again. "I know. But I want everything to go well tonight. I couldn't bear it if anyone was sad for me or felt sorry for me." She felt tears threatening and blinked them back and took a deep breath. "Not tonight. It's too special a night for anyone to feel sad, whether it's my friends and my family or you and me." Tenderly, he cupped her cheek in his hand. "Your friends and your family care about you. They don't feel sorry for you." "Everyone knows that it's near the anniversary of my miscarriage," she said. "They've been watching me. I felt it today at the school program. And sad or sorry, it's one and the same thing, isn't it?" She looked away from the pain she saw flash into his eyes. He stood there, seeming not to know what to say. "David, you need to get ready." "But, Sarah, I have to check on things," she said. And before he could speak, she rushed from the room. Downstairs, Sarah went from room to room, checking one last time to be sure all was as it should be. Her home shone. She'd cleaned for days, and when she was assured that there was not a speck of dust hiding anywhere, she turned to decorating for Christmas. Work took her mind off what had happened this time last year. It kept her busy, gave her a sense of control she hadn't had then. As she glanced around the living room, she should have felt satisfaction. The house had never looked better. A fire crackled merrily in the fireplace, and the drape of greenery that decorated the mantel David had built scented the room with fresh pine. Pots of bright red poinsettias had been set around the room for a festive holiday touch. Candles flickered in glass votives and cast a warm glow. Once, Christmas had been her favorite time of the year. Everyone gathered together to celebrate the birth of Jesus, and she would sit at the feet of her favorite uncle and listen to him read from the Bible the story of baby Jesus born in a stable to Mary and Joseph. The next day was more social, with visits and gift exchanges. She paused at the window to look out at the barn where David had been spending most of his waking hours building the beautiful furniture that was his livelihood. As Christmas approached, the loss had lain between them when they sat at the table for a meal or spent the hours together before bed. Some losses were too huge for words. Sarah could only pray that somehow they would get through this. She heard David entering the room and turned to offer him a tentative smile. She didn't want to have tension between them. She loved this tall, handsome man who worked so hard to build their home and provide for them, who had continued to show her that he loved and cherished her during some of the worst months of her life. When she was 16, she had developed quite a crush on the quiet blonde man with eyes the color of the summer sky. When she was 20, she had married him. 3 years later, she loved him even more. And miracle of miracles, he loved her, even though she felt that she had failed him.